Dirge of Cerberus. Considered by many to be the disappointing black sheep of the Final Fantasy VII compilation. I thought so too, but then I remembered I've never actually played it before. I just assumed the game must be bad because that was the prevailing opinion. So that had me wondering, how can I know if the game is bad? Unless I play it myself. The game starts with Vincent Valentine being his normal emo self when the town is attacked by mysterious soldiers. Vincent then shows off some badass moves, none of which you can do in the game by the way. Then he goes to investigate and we get a shot of the villain directing these soldiers who orders them to capture or kill Vincent. And that's where the... graphics certainly took a hit there. Yet then again, this is a PS2 game, so I can forgive that. Let's see how the actual gameplay is.
I have a really bad feeling about this.
At least the battle system is simple enough. You can melee enemies and shoot your gun and gain components for it, which you can adjust to suit the enemies you're fighting. That's cool, as long as you don't need to do it in the middle of combat, as opening a customization menu doesn't pause the game. Dark Souls stole this. Anyway, we go on our first mission, thanking God that Square Enix put aim assist in this game. And before long, we find another one of the problems with this game, assuming the combat hasn't turned you off already. It occurs during one of the first missions of the game where the game reminds you that the bad guys are bad by separating a mother from her son and locking her in a shipping container. Our mission is to save her in an area full of enemies. Naturally, you'd assume you kill all the enemies and then a cutscene where she's freed plays, right? That's what I thought too. I spent ages in this area fighting bad guys on the ground from the windows, and yet more and more just kept coming. It was only when I was down to my last bullets that I discovered by complete accident that you're actually supposed to go up to the shipping crate, open it, and then kill all the bad guys. And how was I supposed to know that? There's nothing different about the shipping crate. There's nothing telling you to go there, the button prompt doesn't appear till you're right at the control panel, and who the hell would open up the crate when the entire place is full of enemy gunfire? She's safer sealed up in there until you've dealt with all the bad guys. Yet, rather than tell you this, the game just expects you to know that's what you're supposed to do, even though it goes completely against what most players would do in that situation. I'd like to say that's the only time the game does this, but that would be lying! But before we get into that, we need to get back to the plot. Vincent fights the very first boss, and soon after we meet the guys in charge of the soldiers after an epic fight. And we learn three things: that the girl in charge faints, that the big guy's called Azul, and they're after something called the Proto-Materia. Vincent, for whatever reason, does absolutely nothing to stop them from leaving. I understand that would end the story too quickly, but come on, you need to justify shit like this. He literally just stands there and lets them leave. This guy's a former Turk, for crying out loud. Why is he letting this happen? Reeve Tuesti then shows up. He and Vincent talk about the two that just left, rather than the fact that Vincent just let them go, and then he gets murdered? Psych. It was actually just one of my least favorite characters in Final Fantasy VII wearing a Reeve suit. Seriously, the fact they kept him but killed Aerith was a massive disappointment for me. We then go and assist the WRO, during which we get a machine gun, which we use to defeat the second airship boss the game throws at you. And we all celebrate the enemies retreating before throwing into this scene.
The mighty WRO. They wouldn't last a day in deep ground.
Yep, bad guys still bad. Then we have a cutscene with Vincent and Reeve where we learn that the bad guys are called Deep Ground, a top secret army created by President Shinra. Then we learn that there have been over 1,000 disappearances in Junon, so that's where we're heading next. But before that, we get to see a TV broadcast from the main villain, who reminds us all that he is indeed the villain by advocating for planet-wide eugenics.
While the tainted will be hunted down and exterminated, they shall be slashed, strangled, and slaughtered, beaten, stabbed, and crushed, garroted and impaled, shot and executed without mercy. The time has come to cleanse this world.
But before we can put a stop to him, we have a turret section. And it's this part of the game where I realized just how spoiled the mouse and keyboard have made me. I was honestly amazed I could hit anything. If there's a mod for this game that adds mouse and keyboard support, please tell me so I can redo it, because this is embarrassing. Then we go to standing on a moving vehicle and shooting, and again I see how much the mouse and keyboard have spoiled me. And then we go into an annoying boss fight against Crimson Hound. He's incredibly fast, he can climb structures you can't, and he can summon other monsters to fight you while he runs around and hides. It's not an impossible boss fight, but when you're controlling a stiff, mainly ranged fighter in an area like this, with terrible aiming controls, you will end up hating this boss as much as I do before long. But all is forgiven because it's followed up immediately after by one cool, challenging boss battle. Techno Gimps on motorcycles. No joke, this boss battle was challenging, but never did it feel unfair. I really had to appreciate the genius game design that went into it all. From Software, take notes. This is how you do it. We then reach Junon, and Vincent ends up meeting with an interestingly dressed WRO member, Shalua Rui. She then tells us there's no sign of deep ground, and she couldn't have been looking all that hard since we find them pretty quickly. Or rather, they find us, as this is a level that introduces snipers. And if you thought turret aiming was bad, well, get ready for sniper aiming. But wait, it gets worse. We meet a civilian! Vivi, why is that a bad thing, you ask?
It's through that gate.
Well, let's look at the evidence. Empty city, tons of bad guys, gates blocking the way, and one civilian boy. The conclusion? Escort mission.
It's through that gate. You have the car key?
But the only good things I can say about this one is it's the only one in the game, and the developers didn't attend the Untold Legends Warriors Code School of Escort Missions. Comment below if you know what I'm talking about there. Also, the developers apologized for said escort mission by giving us a boss fight against a Power Rangers fan? But don't let that throw you off, because this guy is tough. Really, the footage you're seeing does not adequately capture the effort I had to put in to overcome this adversary. Again, From Software, take notes. This is how you do a boss battle. So the Power Rangers fan dies, and then we get a scene with one of the bad guys, who tells us that Vincent has the proto-materia, he just didn't know it, and that it's the key to controlling Omega. They fight, and Vincent transforms, and she decides, screw this, I'm out of here. And then Vincent fates in time for a certain scientist to come to the rescue. And just in time for a flashback, get used to seeing those, of Hojo shooting Vincent back when he was a normal human. Well, good to know that Hojo was always a dick, but I don't think we need a flashback to explain that. And then we get this gem.
It seems like the beast inside you went a little wild back there.
Out of context quotes. You gotta love him. Yet the peace doesn't last, as Deep Ground storms the WR headquarters. And remember earlier when I said this game often assumes you just know what to do and thus doesn't tell you? Well, here it takes it up to dick level. In this stage, your job is to climb the building floor by floor, and an electro gate blocks your progress on every level. You disable electro gates by defeating the enemy that has the card key. That's what the game has trained you to do up to this point. See a gate, defeat all the enemies. Once you hit the second floor though, you meet an electro gate for which there is no key. What you're supposed to do is use one of these doors to go around the electro gate. Again, how was I to know that? There's nothing about these doors that tells you can go through them, and with how the game has been training you so far, how would one ever get the idea to use a door? I discovered it by complete accident after ages of searching for an enemy I thought I'd missed. Yet it's forgiven with this scene of our scientist being a badass. Man, I can't wait to see how she's gonna help us in this game. Yet Square Enix giveth, and Square Enix taketh away. Because at the end of this level we meet Shulk the Transparent, who turns out to be Shalua's sister who was kidnapped years ago and brainwashed to be a deep ground soldier. So Vincent is given tranquilizer rounds and we fight Shulk the Transparent in the most unfair boss fight in the entire game. How, you ask? She's wicked fast, the boss arena is a small confined space that benefits her and near neuters your style of combat, since you're playing as Stiffy McStiffman. You know, unless you carry a limit break into this fight. Like I didn't. She is going to kick your ass at least once, guaranteed. Thus you will suffer the spectacle of a 9-year-old girl kicking a grown man's ass. You know, unless you're into that sort of thing. Anyway, finally I defeat Shulk, and after a chance to resupply, we meet our next boss, Azul the Cerulean. And clearly this guy means business. So much so that his boss battle takes less than 3 minutes to beat on hard mode. Seriously, I can't even joke at how garbage this boss fight is. I can't. I simply can't. You damage him by shooting exploding barrels near him, and you get more by shooting barrels above you. Each one takes a big chunk of his health. His accuracy is a joke, and his one-shot weapon takes forever to reload. Square Enix, you should be embarrassed at this. Hell, I'm embarrassed just showing it to you.
You may think this is the end, but...
And thus he dies as he lived. Pathetically. But if you thought this game couldn't possibly get any shittier, oh, you're wrong. You are so wrong. Because next we get a fucking sewer level! Fighting waves of Hagen in tight spaces. Just what I didn't ask for. Eventually we get out and we get a flashback to Vincent's first meeting with Lucretia, which is infinitely more engaging than the next level with Kate Sith. Hey, I just thought of something. You know what would be really great in a game about Vincent Valentine? Good bosses and decent shooting mechanics? No, a stealth level starring Kate Sith. Sir, that's an awful idea. I know, right? It's a great idea! It would kill the pacing and completely clash with everything else in the game. We're putting it in! Even worse, it has zero bearing on the story at large. Kate Sith doesn't accomplish anything meaningful that impacts the story, and you don't learn anything you don't learn at a later point in the story anyway. If you skip this level, you would miss nothing. And the only thing worse than this shit level is one that was completely unnecessary. Afterwards, we get another scene with Lucretia, who tells us about the ultimate villain in the game. A being known as Omega, who appears as the planet is about to die, who will take the life stream to a new planet, dooming the old one. And Chaos, the being Vincent controls, is the one who awakens and leads Omega. So now we have a reason that Vincent is the main character. Maybe this game will get better. We then fight waves of soldiers and meet Rosso the Crimson in a cutscene where, again, she reminds us that the bad guys are bad. We chase after her and run into a challenging boss battle. And then Rosso gets Vincent by surprise and tears the proto-materia right out of his gut. What does this have to do with our hero gameplay-wise? Nothing. It does nothing to him. It does give Yuffie a chance to save him, though, and a chance for another flashback that seriously forces me to question what the hell Lucretia ever saw in Hojo. Seriously, my sister has better judgment than her. Vincent wakes up to Yuffie and thanks her for saving him by leaving her unconscious body in the truck when it crashes. Real knight in shiny armor material. Another forgettable level later and we come face to face with Azul, who survives death because... plot reasons. He reveals to Shulk that she's no longer needed, and therefore she dies here, on order of Weiss. Shalua heroically sacrifices herself to save Shulk, and later we learn Shulk has some of Lucretia's memories inside of her, which gives her a connection to Vincent. And being an experiment, she's also a lot like Vincent. And she's... technically 19? Let's not go there. No, we're not going there. Anyway, we board Cid's airship in an annoying level where you have to talk to everyone to proceed. And I do mean everyone. And here we learn of Deep Ground's real plan. By kidnapping and sacrificing thousands of pure souls, it's tricking the planet into thinking that the end is nigh, thus awakening Omega to doom the planet. Then we have to talk to everyone again to proceed. Square Enix must have really liked this level. Then we're back in Midgard to confront Deep Ground. We start the train graveyard, and after multiple forgettable boss battles, we finally get a boss battle for Rosso the Crimson, in a well-designed and fair boss battle. No, seriously, this one is actually good. The boss arena is suitable and complements her moveset without being unfair to the player, thus she's suitably challenging. It makes me wonder what the hell happened to all the other bosses in the game. Did a talented intern come in while the developers were on break and design this fight while they weren't looking? I don't know, but this boss battle alone wins the game some points. Yet, directly after this fight, Russo commits suicide. Which I guess fits the theme of this game relatively well. You have one high point, and then it dies. In a big way. As from this point on, the game just gets annoying and drags on for far longer than it should in both level design and in shit boss battles. Remember that boss in the Shinra Manor? Now you're fighting two of them! Just use a limit break, you'll beat them in no time. We descend the Shinra building, fighting through hordes of deep ground soldiers and a couple of unnecessary minigames. And then we come face to face with Azul the Cerulean, who wants to apologize for his god-awful boss fight earlier. And his apology is pulling out a machine gun this time, yet being vulnerable to gunfire. At least he tried. But wait, what's this? He has a second phase. He becomes a mighty beast that can only be harmed by magic, meaning his boss battle is running around, collecting magic to fire at him till he dies. Again, I can applaud them for the effort, but it just didn't work out. At least they made his death scene more epic. And now finally we've reached Deep Ground, the most evil location in the game. Evil for just how much damn padding there is. Oof. Where to start? These things, you need to kill 8 of them and they fly all over the place and they're the least offensive example. And then, as if this game hasn't given us enough, we just assume you know examples. We get this one. In fact, rather than me talking about it, I will let the scene speak for itself. Okay, now, based on the scene I just showed you, how do you think you beat the bulletproof soldiers? Is it A, kill the commander first, which will break the shields, since after all the cutscene makes a point to give him prominence? Or is it B, the commander doesn't matter, you can melee the soldiers and kill the commander last? If you thought it was A at first, I don't blame you. There's nothing that indicates melee deals damage to the guards till you try it out. And the commander is given so much prominence and protection when he doesn't even matter. And so we continue on through hundreds of bad guys and get a railway level. Because turret sections weren't bad enough, apparently. Now, it's not that I hate levels like this when they're done well. Vanquish did an incredible job of them. Here, though, you're basically standing in place shooting at things that pop up around you. The platform moves along regardless of your actions. And the aiming is terrible. It's one of the few levels where I felt sorry for the bad guys. And at the end of all this, we fight Deep Ground in a massive underground city that I have to wonder how Shinra possibly kept hidden for so long. Heck, how the heck did they build it without anyone knowing? This place is big enough to have airships in, and no one ever found out about it? Even by accident? Anyway, after fighting through another small army, we get another flashback. This time we see Lucretia with Grimoire Valentine, Vincent's father. She made a mistake and got him killed, hence why she's so awkward around Vincent when they first met. Still better love story than Twilight. And then we reach the most blatant example of padding this game has to offer. The 100 enemies room. It's just as it sounds. You can't leave till you defeat 100 enemies. Why is this there? Your guess is as good as mine. Finally, we get through all that bullshit and run into Nero, Weiss's brother and lieutenant, who has a really, really deep love for his brother.
Your brother. Dear Weiss. Powerful Weiss. The only person who ever loved me, and the only person I will ever love.
Well, this is the country that made incest popular. But then Nero talks about Shelk and apparently...
The girl is inside me.
You know, I understand why journalists do it now, taking quotes out of context. It's just too easy. The boss battle against Nero then starts, and... it sucks. He's a definite improvement over Azul, don't get me wrong, but he's still a disappointment. His moveset is he stays in place and shoots at you with his gun wings. Occasionally he flies to a different place to shoot you from. But V, surely he has more moves than that, you cry? Well, he does. He can spin and charge at you, which you can dodge or heal from easily. And he can create 2 clones of himself that will shoot at you with him. Why don't I sound impressed at this, you ask? They all share the same health. At first glance, you'd expect there to be only one real one, which would make this fight more challenging. You should have to keep an eye on him, but nope. His one noteworthy move, instead, makes him easier to shoot. Combine that with the fact his damage output isn't that great, and as long as you have some healing items on hand, you should get through this fight no problem. On the flip side, we get to enjoy another flashback where Vincent learns that Lucretia is partially responsible for his father's death. And him asking her about that is what drives her to Hojo? Seriously? Just that? And then she seals herself away afterwards, essentially taking 0 responsibility for all the mistakes she made. Well, it's still a better love story than Raylo. And we fall back into routine, fight through a small army, get a time-wasting boss battle, and then Vincent and Yuffie meet up at the final boss, Weiss the Immaculate, who's dead? But not for long, as Nero comes back again to explain that while Weiss is dead, Omega will revive him, just like Chaos revived Vincent. And then Nero, just like Azul before him, apologizes for his first disappointing boss fight, and gives us a much better one. It starts out with him shielding himself, and to go get to him you have to shoot and destroy all these things while they're attacking you with lasers. Destroy them and Nero is temporarily vulnerable to attack. Once you get around half health, however, he goes to his second phase. Which really should have been his first phase. But take a look.
Are you ready? How about this? Do you know how it feels to be buried in darkness your whole life? Laser starts.
That's the rest of the boss fight. Just stay where you are, listen for the sound of him teleporting. If he's not in front of you or to the side, he's behind you, and you can be in position long before he's ready. I honestly don't know why they did it this way. The battle ends just as Weiss awakens. He then kills Nero, saying he's of no further use, and then reveals his true identity.
You.
That's right, boy. It's me.
Hojo! Yes, just before he died, he uploaded his consciousness to the internet and used it to possess Weiss. He's been calling the shots the entire time. Why? An experiment to see what would happen when Omega awoke. A motivation that fits him all too well. Vincent eventually tells him to shut up, and the epic battle between the two that we've been waiting for years finally starts, and...
You can't hurt me!
Best battle ever. Nero then reappears and merges with his brother so they can be together, and I can't even make a joke about this, it's so explicit. Omega awakens anyway, so Hojo is finally gone for good and Vincent turns into chaos. And then we have the real final boss fight. Just kidding. We have one final level where we have to go through as Chaos Vincent before he gets the final boss. Because Padder's gonna pad. Finally, after all that, we get to the first stage final boss. We're surrounded by 4 crystal feelers. We have to destroy them, but we can only damage them when they're open, and only melee attacks do any damage. Okay, there's some challenge here, and there's nothing unfair. The second phase, we fight Omega's Cocoon. Wasn't aware they were doing anything besides getting hard. This boss fight is just... it's disappointing. Fire at the minions it summons to fight you, then shoot the cocoon. That's really all there is. Finally, we pierce the cocoon with our long, thick, hard revolver. And finally, for real, this time we fight the final boss. Well, first we have to sit through a cutscene where the two find a way that doesn't resemble the actual boss fight at all. And then we get to the final boss. Now the way this fight works is straightforward enough. You attack twice to do damage to the boss, do enough damage, and he exits the Omega suit of armor to attack you himself before getting back in. Now the fight isn't bad, it's not really all that challenging for a final boss fight. Even on hard mode, the only serious part was this attack here. That's near unavoidable and one-shots you, but he only does it once. And if you took a Phoenix down before this boss, as you should before every boss battle, you'll survive it just fine. Thus, the fight ends, Vincent reconciles with the former love of his life, and then gets back with the other love of his life. And this game finally ends. And by God, was it a painful adventure. And for me to complain about that when I'm usually into that sort of thing, you know it's bad. Thus, my score for this game is... I wouldn't even emulate you. This game sucks. It's all I can say. It sucks. The only thing that kept me going despite the issues was the story, meaning it has zero replay value. Most of the boss battles were so lazily done that the Nara clan would call the developers out. I would not recommend this game even to the most die-hard Final Fantasy fan. Now, as to who would I recommend it to? Well, if your son has been a little naughty this year, and Christmas is coming up, it's cheaper than buying him coal. Hey there, thanks for sticking with me to the end. If you liked what you saw, please click the link below and get your free subscription for more content, and comment below.